She's one of the largest ships sailing our oceans. She's as tall as a 10-story building. And in a year, she travels 2/3 the distance to the moon.
Well, it's his job to keep out of my way, but he's not moving.
In 12 months, she carries nearly 200,000 containers, a cargo worth $4.5 billion. Cargo that must be delivered intact and on time. Yet this huge ship has a crew of only 22 who have to be ready for any conditions, any emergency.
All ship personnel to your boat station. See any lights?
And must be ready to defend their ship against desperate marauders, modern-day pirates. The Atlanta's mission? Transporting and protecting a mountain of very valuable cargo. Come, experience life aboard a maritime megastructure. Witness the mechanics and machinations of life at sea.
Okay, I'll go ahead, thank you. Starboard 10.
And visit the bustling ports that feed the ever-growing world of trade. Welcome aboard the OOCL Atlanta, a mega ship, a true giant of the ocean. The Atlanta is one of the latest and largest class of container ships. Known as Post-Panamax, she and her kind are too wide to sail through the Panama Canal. If she were a naval vessel, she'd be the equivalent of an aircraft carrier with a crew of several thousand men. The Atlanta has a crew of just 22, ranging from a handful of ordinary seamen who work to keep the Atlanta shipshape at all times. 5 engineers keep the ship's engines, power plants, and operating systems up and running. And a team of 4 officers work in shifts around the clock. Junior officers stand watch and keep a close eye on the weather. Second Officer Law is responsible for navigation and communications. First Officer Jonathan oversees all the crew, the safety, and daily running of the ship and all cargo loading. At the team's head is a captain who's spent all his working life at sea.
Starboard 10. Starboard 10.
Captain Roger Llewellyn is a man with salt water coursing through his veins. And over the years, he's developed some interesting sleeping habits.
One eye open, always. We sleep with one eye open because at 25, 26 knots, you've got to jump out and up there.
Up there is the bridge, and that's where the sailor who never sleeps has spent most of his last 30 years. He's sailed every ocean on the planet and visited every nation that borders the sea. Right now, the Atlanta is in the Malacca Straits, heading from Port Kelang, Malaysia, to Singapore, then north to Hong Kong. It's a hectic schedule on a crowded route.
050.
A lot of traffic not doing what they're supposed to do, a lot of traffic not reporting. So you've got to have eyes at the back of your head. You've got to keep an eye out for everything moving, especially small coastal traffic. We've got one here, not reported, you see. He's trying to get across the bow.
When the Atlanta blows her horn, you'd be well advised to move out of her way. Her vital statistics are staggering. From bow to stern, the Atlanta is 323 meters long. That's over 1,000 feet. In fact, if you could tip the Atlanta up on her bow, she'd edge out the Eiffel Tower. The area of her top deck is greater than 2 football fields. Fully laden, the Atlanta weighs more than 300 jumbo jets. On her normal route, she carries cargo from Southeast Asia to the west coast of America and back again every 42 days.
These ocean giants make the Earth very small. It is a village, because one minute we're in the east, next minute we're in the West. Very little time between the two. So we're constantly plying the world with manufactured goods.
Megaships like the Atlanta help keep the wheels of global commerce turning. Over half the world's cargo is carried in containers. In 1 year, nearly 20 million containers are moved a total of 300 million times. It's a payload worth almost $5 trillion. The Atlanta may be loaded down, but she still has to be on time.
She runs to schedule for thousands and thousands of miles. She'll arrive on time.
In Singapore, containers are arriving from all around the region. Some have a date. With the Atlanta, these transfers must be planned with military precision. It's a chain where a weak link means a cargo gets delayed, or even worse, lost. The bottom line, the cargo must be at port waiting when the Atlanta docks. Two particular pieces of cargo due for the Atlanta started their journey several thousand kilometers away in Australia. One is precious and fragile, a shipment of 999 cartons of wine from the lush vineyards of South Australia. The other is also a gourmet delight, but this time highly perishable, a container load of sweet, succulent prawns. Both the wine and seafood are bound for shops and restaurants in Hong Kong, and both will require extreme care and constant supervision.
OOCL and 30 good morning. Can I have your last port of call?
The Atlanta's due in Singapore in less than 24 hours, but there's a problem.
Third mate.
Yes, that's correct, over.
Third mate. Yeah, OC Atlanta, the master here. I sent it yesterday and I sent it again this morning when I left Port Calais.
Roger, but so far we've not received it.
Port procedures are very strict.
I give up.
Without the right paperwork, ships can't enter a country's waters.
Third mate, keep him there, tell him. Instead of the last 10 ports which you've already got, I'll just send you Port Calais.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
Aye, aye.
The captain must keep to schedule. He has 2,200 containers to move in Singapore. And he must get there on time. The Atlanta is steaming towards Singapore Harbor and the planned 2,200 container moves. This megaship is purpose-built for one thing only: to carry cargo. A mountain of cargo. All up, she can carry 8,063 20-foot containers.
These are the lashing bars and the turnbuckles. These are 20 foot. You can load 20s and you can load 40s, either or. But they still need lashing forward and aft to keep them fixed in position.
Even though she hasn't yet reached her full load capacity, the captain still likes to check on the containers from the top to the very bottom.
Where we are now, we're 13.6 metres underwater now. Down here, the containers are stacked 9 high. So they go 9 high and then on deck another 6 to 8 high. So roughly we're stacking 17 high.
From the very bottom of the stack, over 13 meters below the water, the containers rise over 44 meters. On land, it would look like a city block rising 10 stories. If laid end to end, those containers would stretch further than an Olympic marathon, nearly 50 kilometers. A little over 40 years ago, it was a different story. Products like wine would have been transported in a variety of simple boxes, and moving frozen foods over long distances was simply out of the question. Then, in the late 50s, an American, Malcolm McLean, came up with an idea that would revolutionize world trade. By packing all goods into modular containers similar in design and dimension, they could be easily transported anywhere in the world by road, rail, or sea. As the use of these containers has grown, so has the size of the ships that carry them. The Atlanta is one of 12 SX-class ships built for OOCL by the Samsung shipyard in Korea. It took over 8,000 workers nearly 9 months to build her, at a cost of over $150 million.
She is the largest ship ever built when she was contract. And she had been installed the largest main engine when available in that time.
For the engine power that he was given, for the speed he wants, he's done, for me, a great job.
When first launched, the SX class held the world record as the largest container ship ever built.
We use the high tensile steel to get the minimum light ship weight so that we can maximize the cargo loading capability.
It's that combination of high tensile steel and the design of the hull that gives the Atlanta her enormous load-carrying ability.
This that runs the full length of the ship is a very important structural member for stresses, because you must remember there's so many big openings that the ship is bending all the time. In this area, when you've got 95,000 horsepower pushing this ship, the pressure is enormous. You can see that the frame structure is very heavy. So this is a high stress area, especially in heavy weather.
The real pride of the Atlanta is the power plant. This is one of the world's biggest diesel engines. A 12-cylinder turbocharged monster. Its sheer size is breathtaking. The engine fills a room 6 stories high, 6 stories of incredible power. The engine peaks at 104 revolutions per minute, but generates a mind-blowing 93,120 brake horsepower. That's over 700 times more power than an average family car. And all that power adds up to one thing: speed through the water. She can average nearly 25 nautical miles an hour. That's fast enough to water ski behind, as long as you can handle that huge stern wash. While at sea, the Atlanta can notch up over 570 nautical miles a day. But a speed like that comes at a price.
This ship, she burns a lot of fuel. Full speed, she'll burn 230, 240 tons a day.
That's a staggering 10 tons of diesel every hour the ship is underway. She may be thirsty, but she's also a clean engine. And that starts with clean fuel. A series of filters remove impurities before the diesel is pumped into a holding tank and heated to 129 degrees. Hot fuel and gas is an explosive mix.
Number 7 cargo hold, number 7 cargo hold, the fire alarm's gone off.
No other sound strikes fear into the heart of the mariner like the fire alarm.
Starboard side, bay 1, starboard side. Let me know
A fire at sea can spell disaster. A small spark can soon become a fireball. The crew have to be ready to act in an instant.
In the ocean, you're on your own, you've got nobody. We've got no shore facilities, no emergency services. We just rely on our own training and our own emergency services. But a fire is the worst.
In an emergency like this, First Mate Jonathan rallies the crew. The captain calls the shots.
We are now proceeding forward for investigation.
Aye, aye. On deck, please.
Getting it right can mean the difference between survival and disaster.
Both those are ready. Okay, I'm going to start the emergency fire pump.
I got that.
The crew have to work together closely. When the emergency pumps come on, they come on strong. Seawater is pumped onto a fire at a rate of over 4,000 liters per minute through high-pressure hoses.
Training every Saturday afternoon, 2 hours of training every Saturday. We have fire drills, forward, galley, accommodation, all over the ship. Within a space of 3 months, we'll have covered every part of the ship in a fire drill. And 95% of all fires at sea are in the engine room.
Meet me down at the CO2 room. The CO2 room. You read over? No copy.
Each week, the Atlanta's crew carry out an intensive fire drill. A fire in the engine room is the most dangerous of all and cannot be fought with water. Fighting an engine room fire requires a different strategy. This room is filled with hundreds of bottles of carbon dioxide, which can be directed automatically to the engine room via a network of sprinkler systems, starving the fire of oxygen. The Atlanta has been powering her way towards Singapore, with Captain Llewellyn determined to keep her on schedule. The Atlanta's ability to maintain her top speed is thanks to her revolutionary propeller. This 85-ton, 6-bladed piece of molded alloy spinning at just 104 revolutions per minute provides enough thrust to drive her forward at 25 knots. Sitting behind that propeller is a huge rudder that plunges nearly 12 meters below the surface of the waves. It's roughly the same size as a double-decker bus. And with a surface area like that, the captain doesn't want it angled for too long. A rudder at an angle causes drag, which slows the ship down.
You need to keep the rudder movements to a minimum. So I like just to keep her within 1 degree on either side, but that depends on the sea conditions. Big swells, big following sea, you can't do that.
At the moment, the sea conditions are perfect for steering a straight line to Singapore. ETA, 0700 hours. The first sign that the Atlanta's getting closer to port is the sudden increase in sea traffic.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
One of the problems with being a giant is avoiding the dwarves of the ocean. For the captain, arrival at port is one of the most stressful parts of the journey. He has to be ready to react in an instant.
Well, it's his job to keep out of my way, but he's not moving, you see. He's still coming across. Now he's going round. Now he's going to come across my stern.
It's going to be a long day for the captain and his crew. Getting into port is just the first hurdle.
It's the end of, not the end of the working day, but it's because we got cargo work straight away after, but it's the end of the problems in the Singapore Straits, so we can relax a little. Engine tested head and stern.
While the captain maneuvers the Atlanta carefully closer to port, 2,500 kilometers away, another key individual is frantically working behind the scenes. Eric Lee is the ship planner. At the head office in Hong Kong, he's using the latest in sophisticated cargo planning software. He calls all the shots when it comes to loading the Atlanta's 8,000 containers, and must make sure that every piece of cargo is ready and waiting. A miscalculation could prove costly.
The worst thing is the ship is sitting at the terminal, berthing at the terminal without any work. We lost a lot.
Eric isn't the only one who has to get his planning right. Captain Llewellyn must get to the port on time. But before he gets there, the busy waterways are going to get even busier. It's time to call in the assistance of a local expert, the pilot. Every harbor has its own secrets. Fast currents, changing tides, shallow waters. In a tricky maneuver, the Atlanta is about to pick up the man who knows these waters like the back of his hand. Zamil Nair has been a pilot in Singapore port for over 20 years.
Well, we trust him, but you got to watch what he's doing. So it's until you're actually tied up, you can't relax.
Bringing this megaship into dock is the most dangerous maneuver of any trip.
Dead slow at the moment.
The chain of command is strict and involves as many as 12 key individuals.
Starboard 10. Thank you, brother. Basically, I'm working closely with the captain, ship's captain, and he's using my expertise in ship handling and local knowledge to get the ship alongside. 314, steady, sir. Thank you. Dead slow ahead.
Dead slow ahead.
Sea Labrador, Pile Labrador. We've got a tug coming out there. It's going to be made fast at the stern on the port quarter. This tug is about 4,000 horsepower and it's a fairly big, powerful tug. So basically I'm going to swing the ship around to starboard and then backing down into the berth. Stop engines.
Stop.
Engine.
With main engines stopped, the tugboat Labrador is tied to the stern of the Atlanta on the port side. Then it's dead slow ahead.
Atlanta bridge, gangway ready.
Okay, Tango 1, OOCL.
Tango 1.
Will be starboard side, long side, bridge to bow, 249 meters.
249.
Okay, I see one of your crane is down. Can you check on the crane, please?
Okay. Tango 3.
Bigger the ship, the smaller the space, pilot.
Yep.
The bigger the ship, the smaller the space.
Stop engines.
Stop engine.
Okay, Labrador, increase the full power.
Yeah.
At the stern is the Labrador, a 4,000 horsepower tug. Up front, the Atlanta's huge electric-driven bow thruster adds another 3,350 horsepower. All up, the pilot has over 7,000 horsepower at his command. By combining the pull of the Labrador at the stern and the power of the bow thruster, the pilot cleverly spins the Atlanta into position. When the spinning is over, it's time for some precision parking.
Okay, Labrador, slow to port, Labrador.
It's the ultimate shoehorning exercise.
Dead slow ahead.
Dead slow.
There's no margin for error. The Atlanta is 323 meters long. She's being parked in a space with only meters to spare.
Stop engines.
Stop engine. What have you got forward now? How much?
About 5 meters.
5 meters, is that all?
So keep the after spring slack. Don't give it up.
Keep spring slack as we come astern.
Even though they perform this operation hundreds of times a year, it's a tense time for all the crew.
All the way on your forward spring now. All the way forward. 2 meters, 2 meters. Should be on the road in a minute.
Position.
In position, hold her there now, hold her on your spring.
Another successful docking for the captain and Nair, the pilot. And the moment the Atlanta docks, things swing into action as the trucks line up for loading and unloading. Singapore is one of the largest container terminals in the world, handling 17% of the world's total container trade. In 2004, over 20 million 20-foot containers passed through the port of Singapore. For every single ship, every minute in port counts. A total of 4 giant cranes start moving the Atlanta's containers at breakneck speed. The pressure is on. The Atlanta has 2,200 containers that need to be moved, and the captain's hoping it can be done in under 20 hours. This is where Eric's cargo planning is really put to the test. He has to pre-plan every move and allocate each container a specific position on the ship. No container should be moved twice. Double handling wastes time and money. So containers due to be unloaded at the next port must be stacked close to the top, while a container bound for America needs to be stacked deeper in the hold. The other major concern is keeping the ship balanced during loading. Too much weight on either side of the ship could put it in danger of capsizing. It's Jonathan, the first mate's job, to keep a close eye on the Atlanta during this critical time. His computer monitors the distribution of weight around the ship and also allows him to compensate for any uneven loading. Deep in the ship's hull are a network of giant ballast tanks. By moving hundreds of tons of seawater between these tanks, Jonathan can keep the Atlanta on an even keel. To complicate this balancing act even further, the ship has to take on fuel. The Atlanta's tanks can hold over 7.5 million liters of diesel. This is a job for an expert. Bunker boats are the floating petrol stations of the port. This is the only time the Atlanta will take on diesel for the round trip from Asia to America. Today, they're taking on nearly 7,000 tons. It's an operation that will take over 6 hours. With the price of fuel around $280 a ton, this little trip to the gas station will cost the captain nearly $2 million. While the engine's shut down, Alvin, the second engineer, can check out the crankcase. There are certain advantages to working on an engine this big. It's not often a man can stand inside a crankcase to check for loose bolts or undue wear on any of the moving parts. When a cylinder has a bore of nearly 1 meter and the piston has a stroke of 2.4 meters, any wear is going to cause serious trouble. Among the 2,200 containers being moved today are the 2 that started their journey 2 weeks ago in Australia. The container carrying the latest vintage of Australian Chardonnay needs to be moved quickly, but also with care. The last containers to be loaded on board are the refrigerated containers. These reefers are carrying perishable goods. The one carrying the Australian frozen seafood has to be kept at a temperature of -18 degrees throughout the entire journey. Jonathan, the first mate, hooks them up to the ship's power supply in order to get the refrigeration units working as soon as possible. While on board, the crew will check their temperatures twice a day, every day. Below decks, the crew go on a manhunt. At dock, there's always the risk of taking on extra cargo, human cargo. Stowaways looking for a free ride to the USA. Stowaways have been known to climb mooring ropes at night and are sometimes even hiding inside the containers. If they get on board, they pose a real security threat. While the crews search for stowaways down below, up on the bridge, the officers are planning for the sea voyage ahead. It's the second mate's responsibility to plot the course. It's an intricate combination of old world tradition and new age technology. He does his initial plotting using charts, slide rule, and compass, and then transfers the data into a computer. The advanced software then links his data to the satellite navigation systems and radar. The result? The officers on the bridge can plot the ship's course and see any oncoming traffic, all in real time.
Well, the beauty of that for me is you see where you are instantly. You see exactly where the ship is. And there's many times I have to be on my own, so I need to know where she is. A ship of this size, when she's drawing 13.6, 14 meters, we need to know exactly where she is.
The search for stowaways below deck is complete, and the crew have given the bridge the all clear. Nearly 22 hours after first docking, all of the new containers are on board and are being secured for the long trip to Hong Kong. Each container is lashed to the rows above and below in a matrix which locks every single container rigidly in place. This ensures that none of the cargo, including those bottles of Australian wine, will shift if the Atlanta starts pitching in a storm at sea. A full 2 hours later than planned, but with all cargo on board and firmly secured, the Atlanta is ready to leave Singapore. Taking a giant out of port can be even more difficult than bringing one in. And of course, that clock has started ticking again.
Coming in and out of port, we're under more stress than when we're sailing out in the open sea. And we got deadlines to meet, sailing schedules. They want us there at a certain time, we can't get there. And it all adds to your level of stress.
Midships.
As with arrival, Captain Llewellyn shares command with Zamil Nair, the pilot. In these confined waters, the bow thrusters get a full-blown workout. Nair uses all his experience. First, reversing the Atlanta before the tugboat with all of her 4,000 horsepower helps spin the Atlanta away from the docks and points her in the right direction.
Steady as she goes.
Tango 4, pilot, Tango 4.
Steady.
Pilot, Tango 4.
With the Atlanta slowly increasing speed and safely on her way, Nair now needs to meet up with another incoming ship. It's a transfer that involves a hair-raising climb, followed by a brave leap to the pilot boat, all at a speed of over 8 knots. One slip could be his last. By his calculations, it's a leap of faith that he performs as many as 8 times in one working day. Once the Atlanta is out in open waters, Captain Llewellyn resumes sole command of his megaship. It will take the Atlanta 2.5 days to sail to Hong Kong from Singapore, traveling a distance of over 1,460 nautical miles. That's a lot of time at sea. Time that's taken up with regular maintenance and a strict timetable.
You must have a routine. You're keeping yourself ready and waiting for the next challenge.
Once a week, Captain Llewellyn, the first mate, and the bosun carry out inspections of every section of the Atlanta's living quarters.
Home entertainment here, Chief Mate. Home from home. Home from home.
For the captain, the Giant can only run efficiently if attention is paid to every tiny detail. That applies to every inch of the ship. While the crew's quarters are checked, the crew themselves have their own inspections to carry out. Electricity is crucial for all the ship's operating systems. The engineers are responsible for keeping all 5 3,000 kilowatt generators running smoothly. Without them, the Atlanta would be dead in the water. The refrigerated containers also rely on electricity. The crew have to check the temperature of every single reefer twice a day. It's a full-time job to keep perishables like the Australian seafood in tip-top condition. And guess what? The Atlanta can carry over 700 of these refrigerated units. Although the Atlanta is surrounded by water, none of it, of course, is drinkable. Every drop of fresh water on board is made by turning seawater into drinking water. The ship's desalination plant can treat 30,000 liters a day, but it has to be cleaned regularly. Salt builds up on plates, which have to be stripped, cleaned, and put back into operation quickly. Another thing that's crucial to life on board is food, plenty of it, and it has to be kept fresh. The Atlanta has its own mini reefers in the living section.
This is the veg room. This cook, he looks after everything absolutely perfect. He's one of the best I've been with. He sets everything out, he rotates, he keeps his storerooms immaculate.
A key member of the crew who's hardly seen and seldom heard, but is crucial for harmony on board, is the cook. He orders and prepares all the food and has to come up with a menu that'll keep all 22 men of varied cultural backgrounds happy. 22 meals 3 times a day, 7 days a week. And he does the washing up. For the captain, sharing meals with the crew is about far more than just the food.
One of the beauties is to bring them all together, to sit down and eat together. And you make them feel part of the team. If you don't have a team, you can forget this life. You must work as a team.
If there's ever a time when a good team spirit is needed, it's tonight. The ship is entering dangerous waters. The security level has been raised. The South China Seas are busy with all sorts of craft. Many are small fishing boats, miles from shore. Some, however, may not be at all interested in fishing. Pirates trawl these waters, looking for the ultimate catch.
Heading on 308, sir.
Well, they're there. You don't know where they are, but they're there. They're watching all the time. So it's a threat. We know that threat.
Official figures show there can be 3 pirate attacks every 2 weeks in these waters.
Third mate, I've got 2 targets here. And these guys that come aboard, if they can get aboard, they're ruthless. They'll kill for the US dollar.
Modern pirates don't wear eye patches and don't carry daggers between their teeth. Today, they carry machine guns, AK-47s and M16s, and travel in high-powered speedboats.
352, 3 miles. We're a soft target. We're easy. We're not armed. We're just easy. They know that. Starboard 20. Starboard 20. Hello aft, hello aft.
Bridge, the mechanic reporting.
Yeah, this is Bridget. We've got a target now. He's moving at 32 knots. He's coming down the port side. If you see anything, let me know. This is the captain. All crew members to your pirate stations. All crew members to your pirate stations.
The crew have to be ready to defend their ship. The pirates have one of 2 aims, either to take the crew hostage, or more commonly, to steal any money or valuables that might be on board. The pirates' strategy? Attack the ship's blind spot. They head for the aft deck. This is the lowest part of the ship and the most vulnerable.
As I'm taking evasive action now, I'm going port 20. I'm going port 20. Midships, midships.
If the captain can't outmaneuver the marauders, their only defense, high-pressured water cannons. Their only hope, washing the attackers into the sea before the pirates can get aboard. Luckily for the crew, tonight turned out to be another close call. The fast-moving vessel was just a fishing boat crossing paths with the Atlanta. But if it's not one threat, it's another. The wind is freshening, the seas are rising. Intense tropical storms of the typhoon season command respect and demand a response. The captain can either skirt the storms, burning more fuel and losing time, or take them head on. This time, he decides to take the risk. No matter the weather, the crews still have to attend to their duties. The reefers still have to be checked, even if it means braving winds up to 70 knots. It's in conditions like these that the power supply to the reefers could fail, spelling disaster for our precious cargo of Australian seafood. At the moment, the reefers are still working. Storms can severely reduce visibility, but heavy rain also plays havoc with navigation equipment. The squalls create unreadable blotches on the radar screen. The danger: there are times when the crew of the Atlanta are almost sailing blind. The Atlanta is weathering the storm, which is losing intensity. The captain's instinct was right, and his gamble to take on the storm is paying off. But now, she still has to make Hong Kong by midnight. The rest of her journey depends on it. It'll take the Atlanta 42 days to complete the full circuit from Southeast Asia to California and back again. It's a mega trip, even for a mega ship. In a year, the Atlanta sails over 260,000 kilometers, which is roughly 2/3 the distance to the moon.
5 miles to our next waypoint. On that
5 miles.
Yeah, 313.
313, I
Yes.
Our megaship, the size of an aircraft carrier, now has to navigate Hong Kong's congested waters.
Starboard 10.
At night, the bridge is not only the brains of the ship, it also becomes the Atlanta's eyes and ears.
350, 2 miles. Stopped.
When a vessel registers on the Atlanta's radar, it's identified by a number, and its direction and speed can be tracked by those watching from the bridge. It's another crucial piece of technology that helps a mega ship maneuver gracefully into a mega port. Bringing the Atlanta into another of the world's busiest ports at night means this small crew have to work together with maximum efficiency once again. It's just before midnight. In any 24-hour period, as many as 100 container ships sail into this harbor. The Atlanta is the last of the day. As at all the ports on the Atlanta's route, space at the dock is tight. Container ships bustle for space in this incredibly congested harbor. In a year, over 22,000 container ships move over 20 million 20-foot containers through this port. Once alongside, the winches take up the slack. The last thing anyone wants is 2 megaships wrestling for space. After more than 2 weeks of travel, this is the final destination for 2 particular pieces of cargo. The reefer containing the Australian prawns is whisked off the ship. Not far behind is the container packed with 999 cartons of Australian wine. The containers carrying both the prawns and wine reach a cargo warehouse. This is the telling moment. The frozen seafood has passed through the tropics, crossed the equator, and arrived, still frozen after 2.5 weeks at sea. By the time the seafood has been unpacked, the Atlanta has taken on her load for America, and fully laden, she sails on. On the bridge, the captain and second mate Law plot the ship's next long journey across the Pacific Ocean. Having made a long and perilous journey of their own, all 999 cases of wine have arrived intact and on time. In a year, the Atlanta will carry over 185,000 containers at an estimated value of over $4.5 billion. The Australian seafood and wine are just a tiny fraction of all the goods that this megaship will transport around the globe. The Atlanta won't dock in California for another 10 days, giving some of the crew a chance for a well-earned break.
Don't eat everything, right? Save us some food.
Although he may not be at the helm in years to come, Captain Llewellyn, the sailor who never sleeps, trusts his young crew will be ready to steer the course of the megaships of the future.
The satisfaction I get is knowing that the boys will be taking from what I've given them, and hopefully carry on running a safe, happy, well-run ship.